Well, hello traders. Joe with you here. It's the 11th of April. Let's do a currency recap. I'm going to share ideas with you guys and break down the markets. You know the deal. Take responsibility for the outcome. First thing I want to do is break down any meaningful news of the day, which we did have a couple of announcements, and see what that did to the broad markets as well as the currencies. Trading it on technical levels, taking a look at what the charts gave us, and as always, sharing some setups with the community.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional Forex and crypto traders. Maverick Currencies is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional Forex and currency trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's break down what happened today.
As we move into the market analysis, you can see our velocity score and where we sat. And the majority of stuff is a little bit on the weak side. A little bit of strength in the US dollar. The pound has just been hanging out, and the Canadian dollar is holding in there as well. A couple of things did switch there. We did have the ECB announcement. We'll get there. So let's take a look at how things changed. The yen dropped a little bit. The US down a little bit, but this is actually after a pretty substantial move to the upside over the last few days. The Swiss franc actually had a little bit of a bounce. The euro dropped 0.32%. The expectations were to be, I'd expect a little bit more volatility based on the ECB announcement. No real change. We'll get there in a second. The pound completely flat. The CAD dropped a little bit, and the Aussie and New Zealand dollar both bounced. So let's just jump directly into what kind of drove the majority of these moves. The PPI was in line with expectations. Jobless claims was a little lower than expected, so showing a little bit more of expansion, kind of correlating with that CPI number that was really, really hot yesterday. Now, we've mentioned that the PPI is actually more of a leading indicator. It actually came in line. It did expand 0.2%, but it was in line with expectations. So it was not nearly as high as that the CPI number that we got yesterday. And I do believe the market saw that as a positive thing, showing that maybe we could see the consumer price index start to slow down moving into the future. Big piece of news today also was the ECB. No change to rates, but they did lean toward a rate cut in the near future. And I do think that that had a little bit of an impact on the euro. We'll take a look at it. It's actually one of my setups for today, but it wasn't catastrophic. I do think this was expected, but it does show that there could be weakness for the euro moving forward, and it did have a pretty massive impact on gold. The SPX was up a little bit. Like I say, it was the PPI was pretty good, so the markets just recovered. They were down a little bit, they went flat, and then they just kind of pushed into the close. The world index up as well. Crypto, a little bit of a drop. This is more of a pullback, but take a look at gold, 1.76%. I truly believe a lot of that had to do with the ECB, showing that there was going to be expected weakness and some weakness in the euro, along with the dollar. Gold is on its little tear here, and it actually has broken out of resistance. And oil down 0.68%, but it's also in a higher range, more of a consolidation or pullback. Moving into the cryptos, Bitcoin completely flat. Now, Bitcoin Cash, on the other hand, had a little bit of a pullback, 3.47%, which I'd expect. It's a super volatile thing. But it is still in its trend. Ethereum down 0.79%, Litecoin up 1.99%. Overall, folks, when you take a look at these charts, there is not much to look into, as there is little change on the cryptos. Let's get into our market outlook. We'll just go straight to it. You can see that the chart here really didn't do much. It just kind of meandered across what we've expected to do for a while. I've been drawing this box here for a while with the Maverick trading side of things, and we do see a little bit of a descent going here, but once again, this could also be interpreted as a bull flag pattern. So I know I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on this 50-day moving average, along with maybe some support level just below the box that I drew. Today's price action did put us right about that 20-day moving average. We have tapered back over the last couple of weeks. Our outlook of a +3 down to a +2. I don't think I'm going to change that too far because of this pattern. And until I see something a little bit more fundamentally weak, I'm not going to be scared out of any sort of pullback at this point. What do we have to look forward to? Well, most of it's behind us. The PPI was big. The CPI the day before that. The ECB announcement was a big one, a little bit of impact on that, but not as much as we'd expect to change any sort of overall market directions. What do we got? We got GDP for Great Britain coming out here on Friday. We've got the preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment. Those are the only things of note. I don't think we're going to see much change over the last few days without some sort of unexpected event or announcement. So let's get into the markets and just kind of break down what happened in some of these currencies. So first off, let's start with the yen, down 0.31% today, and it looks like it just continues to roll over after hitting yet another good resistance area here about the 50-day moving average. This has been pretty consistent when it comes to just a weakening currency, and we didn't really get any change here. I could have given it a little bit more of a bearish score, but what I'm looking for, what I'm excited about, is if I can actually see this break its floor and move substantially lower, then it could be something worth trading. Until then, I'm just going to keep it up on my watch list and see where it goes. Next off, we'll go to the US dollar. Here we are at that breakout. We saw this, oh boy, I'd just say a day or so ago. A pretty good substantial move back at this area, and then just a break above resistance. Even if I jump over to a daily chart on this, you could see pretty much the exact same pattern, obviously just on a longer term. But this breakout is actually kind of sustaining itself. It's staying above an area here. It's going to be difficult to trade because it's going to probably go sideways or range bound up at that area. What you're looking for is to see if it can stay above this resistance. This candle will be pretty volatile, I imagine, over the next little while, especially in light of how the dollar's trading. It's actually one of the stronger currencies and has been for a while. So if I bump back into this, the 4-hour chart again, zoom in a little bit here, you guys can see that it is still playing with resistance levels as it continues to shoot higher, consolidate, and shoot higher. I don't think it's going to be on the front running of the trade that I'm after, but it is worth noting that it is still the strongest out there. Let's move to the Swiss franc. The Swiss franc is set yet at what could possibly be another rollover point as it retests its moving average and it continues this downward trend. It's been doing this for quite a while. I know that it's been on Onkett's bear watch for quite a bit, and I'd have to agree. One thing that is kind of neat about this is it's actually setting up a little bit of a descending triangle pattern. So if you guys just want to put that on the back burner for a little bit and see if it can't break below that 1.38 area for a possible move to the downside. Obviously, we want to see what we're going to pair it with when we get there, but overall, the currency is weak. Here is the euro. This is the trade that I have for day, not the specific one, but I'll show it to you in a minute. But I do like the weakness. Obviously, the ECB coming out said, hey, no change, but we are going to soften in the future, kind of impacted the currency. I would expect a little bit more of a reaction to it that way. Let me shrink this up. Here's the daily chart on it. You can see it did have a pretty decent little bit of a rollover, but on the daily, it almost looks like it's kind of a consolidation sideways move, but this could easily start to retrace back down to that 50-day moving average. And if you go back to the 4-hour, you can see that it's actually at a pretty decent level here where we could break a support level area. So keep an eye on this if it continues to get weak. And guess what I'm going to pair it with? That's right, folks, the US dollar. We'll take a look at that chart here in a second. Keep an eye on this and see if we can see if it can continue to get weak and maybe roll lower. Now, sympathy-wise, I think maybe the pound has stalled itself out. I don't know if it's attached too much to the euro. I think it's a little stronger than that, but hey, here it is on the 4-hour chart. Lots of shadows on this. It's super choppy, but it is just sticking to that 50-day moving average, which is slightly lower. It's been super difficult for me to keep the pound. Actually, I moved it from a +1 down to a 0 because I think there's more of consolidation in this and weakness overall than there is any sort of inherent strength. So let's take a look at it here on a daily chart. Super leggy, super range bound, but usually when it finishes out, it's pretty much sideways. I went to a 0 just because it's below the 20. It should actually be a +1. Taking a look at the 4-hour chart, where if you wanted to play something kind of sideways or range bound, this would probably be a pretty good place to be. Taking a look at the CAD, you can see the CAD is actually a little bit weaker. What I liked about it is we had a pretty good move to the upside. I think we had it at a +1, but take a look at this move as it rolls over. Now overall, it's still decent. It's not a negative. It's not a -2 or -3. It's not falling apart by any means. However, I do see a little bit of instability at this level. This could be a decent pullback, but if you take a look at where it came from, all of a sudden it has a resistance area. So this could actually turn to more of a range-bound sideways area. What I'm looking for it to do is to break the candlestick that it's set right here and actually move towards this target to the downside. The Aussie here on a daily chart does look like it is in a pretty decent area of a pullback, stabilizing and moving higher. Take a look at the 4 hour. It's a little bit different because this almost looks like it's more anemic, broke both support levels, broke both moving averages, and is now retracing back up to a falling 20. So I had to keep it kind of where it was, showing maybe a little bit more weak than it went. I'd say -2. I actually upgraded up to a -1. And it's because we had a pretty decent little move towards this day. Today as it moved back up towards those levels. Still bearish overall. Jumping straight into the New Zealand dollar, pretty much the same exact thing. If I take a look at this on the daily, this looks substantially worse than the Aussie. The Aussie looks like it's pulling back. This definitely is in a bear rally mode. So of the two, it remains the same outlook, folks. New Zealand is the weakest. It did rally back up to its moving average. It doesn't look like it wants to roll over yet. This is something that you need to be patient with. Wait for it to break that support level before you kind of see this as, oh, it's an inherent weaker currency that I compare with something else. We always want to make sure that the pattern develops before we trade it. Let's briefly take a look at the cryptos. This is Bitcoin. This actually had a little bit of a move up today. Let's take a look at this daily here, and you can see it's a little bit different. It's still kind of in this high base area. When I squeeze this down, here we go. Yeah, so it's in a consolidation area, but it does overall have this ascending triangle pattern. Love the ascending triangle pattern. However, when you're doing a daily chart, you're going to have to be a lot more patient. Let's get to Bitcoin Cash, as that was, I think, the largest mover for today outside of gold. As you jump into the 4 hour chart on it, you can see it had a breakdown and a little bit of a consolidation. Kind of a descending triangle going on. Maybe we could see a little bit of a retracement back down to this level here at the 570. But it does seem like it wants to park itself right around that 610 area. So wait for this to break a little bit lower. And as you can see, as we jump to the daily chart in this, you can see that this is actually just a pullback overall. So this would be a counter trend trade. It's something that you might just want to sit out and avoid. Let's jump to the big mover of the day. This was gold. And as you can see, just another surge breaking higher. I do think it has a lot to do with the ECB outlook and the expectations of a weaker euro moving forward, along with the dollar instability. So broke out today on the daily, looks really nice. On the 4 hour chart, it looks really nice on that. The daily chart just feels a little bit more overextended. But as you can see, folks, this is kind of a consolidation area. So if you don't want to chase it, you can see if it will consolidate or pull back before jumping into it. But it seems to be very strong and kind of outperforming. So what changed? Not a whole lot, folks. The dollar is still +2. Bitcoin's at a +1. I think that moved up from a -1 to a +1. It was just an oversold pullback. It's bouncing. The yen, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, still at a -2. I dropped the euro from a -1 to a -2. Not a lot. New Zealand's still -3. So not much has changed. You just kind of need to find what opportunities you have. Showed you a little bit more on gold specifically. It's outperforming. There could be opportunities there for you guys who want to take a look at that. However, I've only really got one trade to take a look at, folks, and it's pretty obvious which one it is. It is the dollar euro. So I'll just jump straight into it and we'll take a look at it. What I really liked about it is actually just breaking down. My focus is absolutely going to be this base, and this might come early, it might come late, but be very patient, because if this base starts to roll over and fall apart, might be a pretty good opportunity. Other than that, I'm really not super impressed with the movement I've seen over the last few days, and there's really nothing else I really want to give attention to now. Obviously, I'm going to take a look at some of the setups there. If the New Zealand dollar can stay weak, I'm going to keep my eye on gold. Let's see what some of the cryptos do. But the only one that's really going to be on my radar for the next day or so, especially going into the weekend, is the Euro US. So in conclusion, guys, no drastic changes in the markets at all. I thought that ECB number would be a little bit larger. It seems like that was what was expected. It did weaken the euro, which was also to be expected. But let's just keep an eye on what's going out. Not a lot more out news-wise for this week. So just make sure that you kind of follow your patterns. It's actually kind of good when you don't have too much stimulant out there or stimulus out there, you can actually allow some of these patterns to continue lower or continue higher. Make sure that you follow your trading plans as always, position size correctly. And hey, let's wait for the trade to come to us. There's going to be plenty of opportunity out there. You might be getting a little itchy if you haven't traded for a while, but make sure that you're patient. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll talk to you next time.